The night was heavy with smoke and voices. The market on the alien world of Drinos never slept. Ships came and left in the dark sky, carrying goods, weapons, and people. In the middle of the market stood a cage of iron. Inside that cage, an alien woman waited. Her skin was pale, shining faintly under the firelight. Her silver eyes looked tired, but behind the weakness was a fire, a mother's fire. Her name was Salith. She had been walking the galaxy for days with only one thought: save her child. The boy was small, only 6 years old, and his body was thin from hunger. She could not feed him anymore. The only thing left to sell was herself. Now she stood inside the cage, trembling as the auction began. The slaver shouted, his voice sharp like a knife. "Look here, people of the market. Strong blood, rare race. She can cook, she can clean, she can serve. Who will start the bidding?" The crowd laughed, whistled, and threw cruel words at her. Some called her pretty. Others spoke of using her as nothing more than property. Salith's heart pounded, but she kept her face still. She told herself, "Do not cry. Do not show fear. Do this for him. Do this for my son." In the shadows near the cage, hidden under an old blanket, her child waited. She had told him, "Stay quiet. Do not move. When I am gone, take the food I give you and run. Run far away." Her voice had broken when she said it, but the boy only nodded. He trusted her completely. The bidding began. 200 credits, shouted one alien, his skin covered in scales. 300, barked another, a fat merchant with gold chains around his neck. 400, came a voice from the back, cold and careless. Salith's hands tightened. Every shout was another nail in her coffin. She would be sold like meat. She prayed only that the buyer would throw food toward her son before sending her away. The auction grew louder. Voices rose, laughter echoed. The numbers climbed higher, each one heavier than the last. Then, silence. A new voice spoke. Calm, strong, different. 5,000. Every head in the crowd turned. The slaver froze, his eyes wide. The bid was 10 times higher than expected. From the shadows stepped a human. He was tall, broad-shouldered, his coat dusty from travel. His hair was dark, his eyes sharp but not cruel. He looked at the cage, at Salith, and for a moment she felt something strange. His gaze was not like the others. There was no hunger in it, no greed, only something she could not understand. The slaver's voice cracked. 5,000! Do I hear more? Do I— No one dared to answer. The crowd muttered. No one wished to fight such a high bid. The slaver licked his lips and banged the staff on the ground. Sold to the human. The chains were unlocked. Salith stepped out of the cage, her knees weak. She did not know if this was victory or death. She looked once at the corner where her child hid, but forced her eyes away. If the human noticed, her son would be in danger too. The human came closer. She waited for the strike, for the collar, for the command. But instead, he handed her a piece of bread. "Eat," he said simply. Her heart jumped. She stared at the bread, then at him. It had been days since she had eaten. Her lips trembled. Slowly she reached out, took it, and held it tight. She wanted to run and give it to her boy, but she knew she could not reveal him. Not yet. As they walked away from the market, the crowd's whispers followed them. Why would a human pay so much? Is he mad? Maybe he wants to sell her again. Salith kept her head down, her chains rattling softly. Fear filled her chest. She whispered inside her mind, "For my son, I will endure anything." For him, the human led her to his ship. The doors opened with a hiss of steam. She stepped inside, expecting darkness, cages, pain. Instead, she saw light, clean walls, a table with food, a bed. She froze. This was not a prison. It looked like a home. The human turned to her, his face calm, his voice steady. "I didn't buy you to hurt you," he said. "I bought you to save you." Her breath caught. Her silver eyes widened. For the first time in years, she felt her heart stumble, not from fear but from something else. But still in her mind, one question echoed again and again. Why would a human save me? The ship hummed softly as it drifted away from the market world. Salith sat on the edge of the seat, her hands still locked in iron cuffs. She did not touch the food on the table. Her silver eyes stayed fixed on the human who had bought her. He moved with calm steps, pressing buttons on the control panel. His face was quiet, unreadable. Every sound, the beep of the console, the hiss of the engines, made her heart race. She had been sold before. Every time the new master had smiled at first. Before the cruelty began, she waited for the smile, but the human did not smile. He did not laugh or gloat. He only flew the ship in silence. Finally he spoke. His voice was steady, almost gentle. "You should eat." "You are weak," Saleth tightened her fists. "Why is he being kind?" she thought. "What game is this?" "I am not hungry," she lied. Her stomach burned with emptiness, but she could not trust him. If she showed weakness, he would use it. The human did not argue. He only slid the plate closer to her. Then he turned back to the stars. Hours passed. The ship cut through black space. Saleth watched him secretly, studying every move. His hands were scarred, his clothes worn. He did not look like a rich merchant. He looked like a fighter, a man who had seen too many battles. Finally, curiosity overcame her fear. "What is your name?" she asked. He glanced at her, then answered, "Daniel." The word was simple, human, strange in her mouth when she whispered it. "Daniel." "And you?" he asked. "Saleth," she said softly. Daniel nodded once, as if he already knew her name. When he left the room, she moved quickly. She broke a piece of bread and hid it in her sleeve. Her son was still on the planet, waiting in the shadows. She had to go back for him. No kindness from a human could change her plan, but when she looked out of the small window, her heart sank. The planet was already far behind. Her boy was gone from her sight. Tears pressed at her eyes, but she forced them back. She must not cry in front of him. She must wait, watch, and search for a chance to escape. That night, Daniel unlocked her cuffs. The clink of metal falling to the floor shocked her. She pulled her arms back, expecting a blow. But Daniel only said, "No chains." "Not on my ship." Her voice shook. Why do you not keep me bound?" He looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were not cruel. They were tired but strong. "Because you are not a slave here," her breath caught. The words made no sense. She had sold herself. He had paid. That was the law of the galaxy. How could she not be a slave? "Then why?" she whispered. "Why did you buy me?" Daniel's gaze turned to the stars outside the window. For a long time he did not answer. Finally he said, "Because I was tired of watching people suffer when no one helps them." Saleth's heart twisted. She wanted to believe him, but the galaxy was too cruel for such words. Later, when Daniel slept in the chair by the controls, Saleth crept through the ship. She found the storage room. Boxes of food, water, medical kits. She stole small pieces, hiding them in her dress. She whispered to herself, "For him, for my son, I will find a way back. I will feed him." Her hands shook, not from fear, but from guilt. The human had not harmed her. Still, she took from him. She could not help it. Her child's face filled her every thought. The next morning, Daniel saw the missing food. He said nothing. He only looked at her once, his eyes calm. Saleth froze. She waited for anger, for punishment. Instead, he turned away and began checking the ship's engines. Her chest tightened. No master she had known acted this way. It was as if he wanted her to trust him. But why? Days passed. The silence between them grew heavy. At last, Daniel broke it. "You look out the window every night," he said. "Yes," she answered quickly. "What are you searching for?" Her voice cracked. She could not hold the truth anymore. "My son," she whispered. "I left him on that world. He is hungry. He is alone." Daniel's hands froze on the control panel. Slowly, he turned to her. His face was unreadable, but his voice was firm. "You have a child?" Terror stabbed her heart. She had revealed too much. If he knew, he could sell the boy. Her people's children were valuable, rare, hunted. She tried to cover her mistake. "No, I misspoke. There is no child." But Daniel's eyes told her he did not believe the lie. The ship was quiet again. Saleth sat with her hands clenched. What will he do now? Will he search for him? Will he take him? Then Daniel's voice broke the silence. "If there is a child," he said slowly, "then he is not alone anymore." Her breath caught. The words felt impossible. They felt dangerous, and yet, in her heart, a spark of hope lit. But hope was dangerous too. The ship glided through deep space, far from the noise of markets and chains. Yet inside Saleth's heart there was no peace. She sat by the window, staring at the endless stars, her hands trembling on her lap. Daniel moved around the ship, checking wires, fixing panels, always calm, always silent. His presence was heavy like a mountain. He never shouted, never struck her, never even raised his hand. Still, fear clung to her like a second skin. He cannot be real, she told herself. No human is this kind. No master gives freedom, and yet when he placed food before her, when he left doors unlocked, when he gave her clean clothes, none of it felt like a trap. It felt wrong, but in a way she could not name. One night the silence broke. Daniel sat at the control chair, eyes half closed from lack of sleep. Salith stood in the doorway clutching her dress. "Why do you not use me?" she asked suddenly. Her voice shook. "Why pay so much? And do nothing?" Daniel opened his eyes. He looked at her, his face unreadable. "Because you are not an object. You are a person." The word struck her like a blade. She wanted to believe, but belief was dangerous. "Trust was death, you lie," she whispered. Daniel said nothing. He only turned back to the stars. Salith tested him in secret. She stole food. She crept into the cargo hold and searched for weapons, expecting traps. She tried the side doors of the ship, hoping one would open into escape. Each time she waited for punishment. Each time Daniel said nothing. It was worse than anger. His silence was like water dripping in the dark, slow and endless. At night, Salith whispered into her blanket. Her voice was soft, trembling. "Hold on, my son. Just hold on. I will find a way back." Because she had not told Daniel the truth. Her child was not on the planet anymore. She had hidden him here, inside the ship in a storage compartment near the lower deck. She had smuggled him aboard in silence, praying the human would not notice. Every night she slipped down to him, carrying crumbs of bread and drops of water. Every night she pressed her forehead to his and whispered, "One more day." The boy's eyes, silver like hers, looked at her with trust too heavy for her heart. But secrets cannot last forever. One morning, Daniel found the empty plate she had hidden in the storage room. He said nothing at first, but later, when she came to the table, he was waiting. His voice was calm but firm. "You are hiding something," Salith froze. Her heart stopped. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. I do not know what you mean." Daniel's eyes were sharp. "I know the sound of 2 sets of footsteps at night." Her blood ran cold. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight. Instead, she whispered, "Please, please do not take him." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "Show me." Salith's body shook as she led him down to the lower deck. Her every step felt like walking into fire. She opened the small hatch. Inside, curled like a shadow, was the boy, his thin arms wrapped around his knees. His silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Daniel stopped in the doorway. He stared, silent. The boy blinked up at him, frightened, then turned to his mother. "Is he going to hurt us?" Salith fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around her child. Her voice broke. "No, my love. I will not let him." She raised her chin, meeting Daniel's gaze with defiance. "If you want to sell him, you will have to kill me first." For a long time, Daniel did not move. His face was unreadable, caught between shadows and light. Then he slowly knelt down, bringing himself to the boy's height. His voice was softer than Salith had ever heard. "I will not hurt you. I will not sell you." The boy stared at him with wide eyes. "Then what are you?" Daniel's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. "Not cruel, not sharp, just small, tired, but real." "Maybe," he said. "I am someone who was waiting to meet you." That night, the ship felt different. Salith sat across from Daniel, her son curled against her side, finally sleeping without fear. But her heart was still torn. Daniel had seen the boy's glowing eyes. He had seen the rare light that made her people hunted across the stars. If he told anyone, slavers would come like wolves, and yet he had not chained them. He had not shouted. He had only said one thing before he walked away to his chair. "You are not prisoners here. You are under my protection." Salith could not sleep. She held her child close and stared at Daniel's shadow. Her mind was fire and storm. What does he want? Why does he risk this? The boy stirred in his sleep and whispered one word against her chest. Safe. The word cut deeper than any blade. Because her child had never called anyone that before, and for the first time Salith wondered if the human's choice was not a trap. But something she had never known, something she feared more than chains. Hope. The ship's nights were quiet but not silent. The hum of the engines was like a heartbeat, steady and endless. Salith often sat awake, holding her child in her arms, while her eyes stayed locked on Daniel's shadow at the control chair. Her son, whose name was Irin, was finally eating again. He was stronger now, though his body was still thin. His silver eyes glowed softly when he was excited, like moons behind clouds. Salith always told him to keep the glow hidden, but she knew it could not be hidden forever. Daniel noticed too. He was not a man who missed details. One night, as Irin laughed at a story his mother whispered, Daniel's gaze lingered on the glow. He did not speak of it, but the silence was heavy, full of unasked questions. Salith tried to prepare herself for betrayal. Any human, any alien, any creature who saw the light in her son's eyes would think only of credits and power. Her people had been hunted for centuries, not because they were warriors, but because their children carried something rare, a gift, dangerous and beautiful. Some called it energy, others called it magic. Her people called it the breath of the stars, and now it lived in her son. The first sign came on a morning of storm. The ship passed through a nebula, lightning flashing outside the windows. The hull shook, alarms beeped, the engines roared. Salith gripped her son tight, whispering words of comfort, though fear burned in her throat. Daniel fought the controls, his jaw tight. Sparks flew from the panels, then it happened. Irin cried out, his little hands glowing bright silver. The light spread like waves of fire washing through the air. The alarm stopped. The shaking eased. The storm outside bent away from the ship as if pushed by an invisible shield. Daniel turned, eyes wide. Salith froze. The light faded and Irin collapsed into her arms, unconscious. For a long time no one spoke. The ship was quiet again. Salith held her son close, her heart racing. She expected chains or a weapon pointed at them. Instead, Daniel only whispered, "So it's true." Salith's voice broke. "Please, do not sell him. Do not let them take him." Daniel looked at her, his face grave. "Do you think I would?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to say yes. The galaxy was cruel, but her son's head rested against her chest, his small breath steady, and she could not speak. That night, Daniel asked her for the truth. "What is he?" Salith stared at the floor, her fingers brushing her son's hair. "He is my child." "That is all?" "That is not all," Daniel said. "I saw what he did. Storms do not bend away from ships by accident." Her voice grew sharp. "And what will you do with that knowledge, human? Sell it? Trade it? You could buy a whole planet with him." Daniel's eyes hardened, but his voice stayed calm. "Do you think so little of me?" She wanted to answer, but her throat closed. She had trusted no one for years. And yet here was this man who could have sold her 100 times already, but hadn't. Finally, she whispered, "Our children are born with light. It grows stronger as they age. The slavers hunt us because of it. They fear it, or they wish to use it. That is why I sold myself, to feed him, to keep him hidden." Daniel listened in silence. His jaw tightened, but his eyes softened. "I understand," he said at last. "Then we keep him hidden. Both of you are safe here." Safe. The word was sharp in her ears. Could she believe it? The next day, Irin woke brighter, stronger. He ran across the ship's halls, laughing with joy, his voice echoing like music. Daniel even smiled as he watched, though Salith's heart pounded with fear, because laughter draws attention. Light draws hunters, and in the corners of space, eyes were always watching. That evening, Daniel picked up a signal. He frowned at the screen, adjusting the frequency. A message whispered through the static. "Rumor, silver-eyed child. Rare power. Wanted alive." Salith's blood froze. She rushed to Daniel's side, her voice shaking.
"They know."
"They are coming." Daniel looked at her, then at the boy who was playing with scraps of metal on the floor. His voice was steady, but his eyes were fire. "Then let them come." The ship's lights dimmed as the signal faded. Salith pulled Irin into her arms, her body trembling. She remembered the cages, the whips, the screams of her people when children were taken. She had sworn never to let that happen to her son. Now it was happening again. But this time, there was a human standing between them and the hunters. And that human had chosen something stronger than greed. He had chosen them. That night, as the engines hummed and stars drifted by, Irin whispered into the dark, "Mother, the safe man will protect us." Salith closed her eyes. She wanted to believe. She wanted to hold on to the fragile thread of hope. But hope was dangerous. And outside, in the endless void, hunters were already following the trail. The silence of space never lasted forever. Salith knew this. Safety was only an illusion, a thin veil before the storm. And the storm came. It began with a flicker on Daniel's screen. A red dot appeared behind their ship. Then another. Then 3 more. Shadows in the dark. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "We're being followed." Salith's blood turned cold. She gripped her son, pulling him close. "Slavers." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Hunters." The ship shook as the first blast struck the hull. Metal screamed. Lights flickered. Kryn cried out and buried his face against his mother's chest. Daniel's hands flew over the controls. "Hold on." The ship spun through blackness, dodging laser fire, but the hunters were skilled. Their ships were smaller, faster. They swarmed like wolves circling prey. Salith's voice trembled. They know. They know about him." Daniel's gaze snapped to her. "How?" "The light," she whispered. "When he used his gift, someone must have seen. They always see." Another blast rocked the ship. Sparks showered from the ceiling. Daniel cursed under his breath. "We can't outrun them," he muttered. "We'll have to fight." Salith's heart pounded. "Fight against them?" "You cannot. There are too many." Daniel stood, moving to the weapon controls. His movements were steady, practiced like a man who had done this before. "I've fought worse," he said. She stared at him. "Why? Why risk your life for us?" His voice was quiet but sharp as steel. "Because no one risked theirs for me." The hunters' voices crackled over the comms. Cold, mocking tones filled the cabin. "Human ship, surrender the woman and child. Do this and you live. Refuse and die." Erin clung tighter to his mother. Salith kissed his hair, her own body shaking. Daniel pressed the comm button, his voice low and dangerous. "You'll have to kill me first." The battle began. The ship roared as Daniel fired back. Bright beams cut through space, slamming into the hunters' ships. One exploded in a flash of fire, but 2 more closed in, raining fire across their hull. The ship rattled, alarms screamed. Salith shielded Erin with her body, whispering words of comfort through her tears. "Do not look, my love. Do not be afraid." Daniel's face was set like stone. He fought with precision, with fury, with the kind of rage only a wounded soul carries. Then the hunters changed tactics. A net of energy shot forward, wrapping around Daniel's ship. The engines strained, lights dimmed. The ship slowed, dragged like an animal in chains. Salith's breath caught. "No, no." The hunter's voice returned, cruel and sharp. "The child. Give us the child and you may live." Daniel slammed his fist against the console. The ship groaned under the net. He looked at Salith and the boy, then back at the hunters. His eyes blazed. Never, but resistance had a cost. The hunters fired a boarding clamp. Metal arms latched onto the hull with a deafening crash. The ship rocked, sparks bursting from the walls. "They're coming inside," Daniel said. He pulled a weapon from a hidden compartment, a human rifle, scarred and old. He looked at Salith. "Take him. Stay hidden. No matter what you hear, don't come out." She clutched Erin tighter, her heart breaking. "You will die." Daniel's eyes met hers. "Then I'll die standing." The door burst open. Armed slavers stormed in, armored and grinning with hunger. Their eyes went straight to Salith and the child. "There," one growled. "The boy," Daniel fired. The blast lit the room, dropping the first slaver instantly. The fight exploded in chaos, gunfire, shouts, sparks flying. Salith pulled her in behind a wall, her hands shaking. She wanted to run, to shield him, but her eyes could not leave Daniel. He fought like a storm. Every movement was fierce, desperate. But there were too many. One slaver slammed him to the ground, another kicked his weapon away. They struck him, beat him, but he rose again, bleeding and unbroken. "Stay back," he shouted, standing between them and the child. Then the leader stepped forward. A tall figure with jagged armor, his face cruel and sharp. His gaze locked on Erin, glowing faintly behind his mother's arms. "The light," the leader whispered. The stories were true. Salith's chest tightened with terror. She wrapped herself around her son. Daniel staggered, blood on his face, but his voice was iron. "You'll never touch him." The leader smirked. "I already have." With a snap of his fingers, chains shot out from a device wrapping around Salith. She screamed as she was dragged forward, torn from her child. "No!" she cried. "Erin!" The boy wailed, reaching for her, his small hands glowing with dangerous light. Daniel roared, throwing himself at the slavers, but he was struck down again. His body crashed against the wall. The leader pulled Salith close, his voice like poison. "The boy will come to us. He will beg. Once his mother is gone." Erin screamed, light pouring from his eyes, wild and uncontrolled. The ship shook under the force. Panels ripped from the walls. Sparks rained down. But the slavers only laughed, tightening their grip on Salith. Daniel crawled forward, battered but unbroken. His voice was raw, burning with fire. "You'll have to kill me before you take them," the leader sneered. "Gladly." The scene froze in chaos. Salith in chains, Daniel bloodied on the floor, and Erin glowing like a star about to explode. And outside, more hunter ships closed in. Darkness. That was the first thing Daniel knew when he opened his eyes. His body ached. Blood ran from a cut above his brow. The ship was silent, broken, the floor littered with wires and sparks, and Salith was gone. He dragged himself up, pain shooting through his chest. The slavers had taken her. The memory burned. Her silver eyes wide in terror, chains wrapping around her arms, her child screaming. "Erin." Daniel's gaze snapped to the corner. The boy sat curled in the shadows, trembling, his eyes glowing faint silver. Tears streaked his thin face. "They took her," he whispered. His voice cracked. "They took my mother." Daniel knelt, ignoring his own wounds. His hands, scarred and shaking, rested on the boy's shoulders. "Then we'll take her back." The boy's gaze lifted to him, full of fear. "You'll die. Everyone dies when they fight them." Daniel's jaw tightened. His voice was iron. "Not today." The hunters had left coordinates, a cruel invitation. The slaver fortress drifted among the asteroids, sharp and jagged, lit with red lights like a beast's open mouth. Daniel's ship limped through the void, its hull scarred, its engines barely holding. He pushed it forward anyway. Erin sat beside him, silent, gripping a piece of cloth Salith had left behind. The boy's glow flickered faintly in the dark cabin. "Stay close to me," Daniel said as the fortress grew larger on the screen. "No matter what happens, don't let go." The docking bay doors opened, swallowing their ship whole. Slavers watched from the shadows, weapons ready, their laughter echoing through the vast steel chamber. Daniel stepped out, rifle in hand, Erin behind him. His legs shook with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with fire. The slaver leader appeared, dragging Salith in chains. Her face was pale, but her eyes lit up when she saw them. "No," she cried. "Why did you come back?" "They will kill you!" Daniel's voice thundered across the bay. "Over my dead body." The slavers laughed, their weapons raised. The leader sneered. "That can be arranged." The fight erupted like thunder. Daniel moved with fury. Every shot from his rifle found its mark. Slavers fell, shouting, their armor sparking under his fire. He fought with the strength of a man who had nothing left to lose, each step pushing him closer to Salith. But they were too many. Bullets cut the air. Explosions shook the walls. Daniel was hit in the side, pain flared hot, but he did not stop. He had promised. He had promised the boy. He had promised her. Salith struggled against her chains, screaming his name. She had never seen a human fight like this. Not for glory, not for wealth, but for something else. For her. Erin's glow grew brighter as fear consumed him. The boy raised his hands and light burst outward like a storm. Slavers stumbled back, blinded, their weapons shaking. The fortress itself groaned under the force. The leader snarled, gripping Salith's chains tighter. "Stop him." But Daniel was already there. He crashed into the leader, slamming him to the ground. His rifle pressed against the man's chest. "You will never touch them again," Daniel growled. The leader spat blood, his eyes wide. "Why? Why protect them?" "She is nothing. The boy is only power. Why die for them?" Daniel's voice broke, raw and full of a pain deeper than wounds. "Because no one saved me when I was a child. No one fought for me. And I swore I would never let another child live that pain." The leader lunged, but Daniel pulled the trigger. The blast echoed through the bay, leaving silence behind. The slavers froze, their courage shattered. One by one they fled, their ships scattering into the void. Daniel staggered, blood pouring from his side. He dropped the rifle, his knees buckling. Salith crawled to him, her chains broken by Erin's light. She caught him before he fell. "Why?" she whispered, tears spilling down her face. "Why would you risk everything for us?" Daniel's eyes met hers, weak but steady. "Because you deserve more than chains. Because he deserves to grow, to live, to laugh. And because—" his breath trembled. Because I care. For a moment, time stopped. Salith's heart, always shielded by fear, cracked open. This man, this human, had given what no one ever had. Not money, not safety bought by chance. He had given himself. Irin knelt beside them, his small hands glowing brighter. The boy's voice shook. I can help. I can fix him. Salith's eyes widened. No, the power will burn you. But Daniel placed his bloodied hand on the boy's shoulder. His voice was weak but certain. Do it. Don't fear what you are. Use it. Irin's light spilled across the room, warm and fierce, wrapping around Daniel's wounds. The human gasped as the pain eased. The bleeding slowed. The boy's face twisted in effort, but his glow steadied, as if guided not by fear, but by trust. When the light faded, Daniel breathed easier. He was not whole, but he was alive. Salith held her son close, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Daniel with eyes no longer filled with suspicion. You did not just save us, she whispered. You saved hope itself. The fortress shook as alarms wailed. More enemies would come. But for now, for this single moment, they were together, alive, unbroken. And in Salith's heart, for the first time in years, a dangerous thought bloomed. Not fear. Not despair loved the fortress burned. Flames licked the steel walls. Alarms howled through the dark halls like dying animals. Ships fled into the void, carrying the last of the slavers who dared not stay. But inside the shattered chamber, the real storm was only beginning. Irin stood in the center of the room, his small body trembling. His eyes shone brighter than ever before, silver fire pouring from them like rivers of light. His hands shook as raw energy spilled outward, bending metal, shattering walls. Salith clutched Daniel's arm, her voice breaking. He cannot control it. The gift is too strong. It will tear him apart. Daniel staggered forward, his wounds half healed by the boy's earlier effort. His body ached, but his eyes never left the child. No, he said, voice like steel. We won't let it. The light grew wilder. Crates lifted into the air, twisting before exploding into dust. The floor cracked, glowing with strange lines of power. The fortress groaned as if the very stars themselves bent to the boy's scream. Irin's voice echoed, not in words but in pure sound, a cry of fear and pain. Salith tried to run to him, but the storm threw her back. Sparks cut her skin and she cried out, "My baby." Daniel caught her, pulling her up. His voice roared against the chaos. If you run into that storm, it will kill you. Tears streamed down her face. Then what can we do? Daniel looked at her, his eyes fierce. We reach him not with power, not with chains, but with what he's never known. The boy's glow burned hotter. His small body shook, his breath ragged. Every pulse of light made the fortress crumble. Daniel stepped forward into the storm. The energy slammed against him, tearing his coat, burning his skin, but he kept walking. Irin, he shouted. His voice cut through the roar like a blade. Look at me. The boy's eyes flickered toward him, wild and lost. You're not alone, Daniel said, pushing forward step by step. Do you hear me? You don't have to carry this alone. Salith's heart twisted. She wanted to scream, to pull Daniel back, but something in his voice held her. It was not the voice of a soldier. It was not the voice of a master. It was the voice of a father. Daniel dropped to his knees before the boy, his arms stretched wide, his face lit by silver fire. His voice broke with raw honesty. I was a child once too, alone, afraid. No one came for me. No one saved me. But I swore I would never let another child suffer like I did. The storm shook, the energy faltering. Irin's tears glowed as they rolled down his cheeks. Daniel's voice softened but grew deeper, filled with something stronger than any weapon. I'm here now. I'm not leaving. You are safe. You are loved. The boy screamed again, but this time it was not fear. It was release. The storm broke like glass. The light collapsed inward, folding back into Irin's small frame. He stumbled forward, falling into Daniel's arms. The human caught him, holding him tight against his chest. It's all right, Daniel whispered, rocking him gently. I've got you. I've got you. Salith ran to them, falling to her knees. Her arms wrapped around them both. Tears flowed freely down her face as she kissed her son's hair and looked at Daniel. You stopped him, she whispered. No one has ever been able to stop it. Not even me. Daniel's eyes met hers, because it was never about stopping him. It was about showing him he wasn't alone. The fortress groaned, walls collapsing around them, but together they moved, carrying Irin between them, escaping through fire and ash. Outside, the stars stretched endless and free. Daniel's broken ship waited in the docking bay. Scarred but still alive, they climbed aboard, leaving the fortress to die behind them. Later, in the silence of space, Arin slept peacefully for the first time in years. His breathing was calm, his glow dim and gentle. Saleth sat beside him, her hand stroking his hair. She turned to Daniel, her voice soft but full of emotion. "You gave him something I never could. You gave him peace." Daniel shook his head. "You gave him life. I only reminded him what it means." Her silver eyes shone with tears. She reached for his hand, hesitating only a moment before letting her fingers rest against his. "You bought me with money," she whispered, but in truth, it was love that set us free. Daniel looked at her, then at the boy sleeping safely between them. His heart, once hardened by years of pain, felt something new, something he had not thought possible. For the first time in his life, he was not alone. For the first time, he had a family. The stars stretched before them, full of danger, full of promise. But together, they would face it. Not as slave and master, not as alien and human, but as mother, child, and the man who chose love over chains.